Alright guys, welcome back to Strong Successful Male. So for today, I'm going to go over an email that was sent from a subscriber. This is from a guy. He is 69 years old, recently divorced to a woman he was married to for 40 years, same woman, and he's going to share his story of how recently, I guess a few years ago, that's recent to him, his wife out of the blue said she wanted to end the marriage and also take him for everything he had. Real nice, huh? And ultimately, you're going to see, guys, what he goes through and how he ends up outmaneuvering her, so she certainly doesn't take everything he has. But he shares his story here, guys. It's a very important lesson to all of you, the mistakes he made along the way, so you guys that do relationships don't make them. And one of the biggest themes you're going to see in this story, guys, is how when he was younger and first met her, he was a typical bad boy. Went through girls like you wouldn't believe, that type of thing. And then he met her, and you're going to see that he completely changed. Went from being that bad boy to that typical, what we call now, blue pill nice guy. And over time, she walked all over him. Wasn't immediate, but it was over time. And how he just would cave and let her completely run the show. And obviously, she lost all respect for him. And how guys cannot do that. Because when they do, women lose all respect for him, and a lot of BS will ensue. Also, how you're going to see how it's so important not to rush in relationships. You're going to see he does that. As well as giving up on things you like, laying down the law, being a leader in relationships. Lots of very important lessons here. So, while this is certainly a very entertaining story, particularly from a guy who's 69 years old. I think this is the oldest dude that's ever written to me. It's also a lot of good lessons for you relationship guys here. Very important things to show that it doesn't make a difference whether the gals are in their 60s or in their 20s, they will pull BS, okay? And you got to be prepared for this. Or simply just don't get married. How about that one? So it starts off, he says, Dear SSM, I came across your channel about 3 years ago. At first, I rejected you as I did not think you were old enough to know life. You have changed my mind. There are several I could have told you so, and I hope this might help some young person. Here is the overall situation. I am 69 years old. I was married to the same woman for 40 years. Separated for 2 years and divorced almost 3 years. I think you have that mixed up. I think it's more like separated 3 years, divorced 2 years. We got married when I was 25 years old and she was 20. I've always dabbled in photography, and she was one of my models. She was a natural girl next door, and a published model. Back in the day when publishing was rare. And no, she was not a nude model, just face, legs, and hair. So already, let's set the stage here. She was a model. Obviously very beautiful, in her prime at 20 years old. And, well, you're going to see the kind of impact she has on him when he meets her. He says, I grew up as an overweight young man. My nickname in school was Fat Boy. That's horrible. I left school after 10th grade and went to college and obtained a degree in electrical and mechanical engineering. By the way, I'm very mathematically inclined and less of a writer. I grew up in an extremely poor family. Neither parent went to school past the 8th grade. I started work at age 13, back before the labor laws were enforced, and worked my way through college. He says here, you chastise a young man for having a Jag at an early age. I always loved cars and always had a nice muscle car or later a nice sports car. So I always had a beautiful lady hanging around. But I was a good guy friend. They just like that. He says, just like that, I would let them drive my cars. Context, we were both pre-18 years old. I also started making more money than any young man at 21 should make. I blew much of that money on wine, woman, and song. But still had 2 homes. One a vacation home in Colorado at 22, and was saving and investing on a regular basis. Well, that's great, man. You were making good dough. You know, growing up, like you said, you grew up poor and had to start working at 13, although obviously the family struggled. That helped you develop an ironclad work ethic and help you to recognize you got to bust your ass to have some things in life and to save and invest and all that. So good thing came from that situation. Unfortunately, a lot of young guys over the years in the last couple decades most of them grew up in very comfortable households, and they have this lackadaisical attitude towards work, career, anything like that, and they expect a handout. That's the problem. In my early 20s, I lost a lot of the weight, became buff, and could talk to anyone at any time. So the ladies were, as may I say, easy. So I was never lacking for female company. But I was smart enough to realize that they were after a meal ticket. I became that bad boy, and the fun was on. For the next 4 years, I enjoyed life and had determined that I was going to be single for the rest of my life. Well, if the younger you could see what happened, good Lord. At 25 years old, I was brought to my knees. He's really not joking here. I met the most beautiful lady that I had ever seen. It was lust at first sight. She turned me inside out and upside down. Well, we're going to get more to that later. Was the only lady that I dated after 20 that I did not have you-know-what with most on the first date. I thought I had met a lady with morals. Many years later, I realized that she was simply a great manipulator. When I met her, I became a good guy. I opened the car door. I did everything she wanted. Guys, I'm sure a majority of you out there, if you're honest with yourselves, have experienced this, where when you were younger, you had girls that liked you, that you could really take or leave. But then there was that girl that you really liked, that you really wanted, and all of a sudden you changed when you're with her. And you wonder why she would treat you like crap, toy with your emotions, break up with you, cheat on you, while the other girls that you were interested in would do anything for you. It's all about attitude. It's all about how you treat them and how you behave. This guy changed. Like he said here, I was brought to my knees, the most beautiful lady I'd ever seen. This movie bullshit. And he changed. You can't change who you are. If you're a bad boy, you keep being a bad boy. If you are a leader, take charge, you hang out with your bros, you have a certain lifestyle. If you give all that up, she's going to know you're doing that for her, especially the beautiful ones, and they lose respect for you. And the more you do that crap, the more bullshit they're going to pull. But doesn't mean they're not going to marry you if you have resources and will milk you for everything you're worth. So you cannot change who you are. Okay? Otherwise, you're going to have a lot of problems, and you're going to see right here. It's the main theme of this video, guys. The bad part was, 3 months later, we were married. Smack. How the hell are you going to get to know her well enough to marry her in 3 freaking months, bro? I know you know this now, but I have to say that. Guys, I don't care whether it was decades ago or now. You need, if you're going to get married, you got to spend years getting to know her on multiple fronts. And I know you all know this and watch me regularly. I don't need to spell out all my reasons this time because it's a long video. He says, 3 months later we were married, and I was gone for work 2 months of the 3. She was the lady of my dreams. See how he's putting her on the pedestal? She was a lady that drew attention. When she walked in the room, all eyes were on her, and a major social butterfly. Men were constantly hitting on her, but for the next 30 years, she never gave me reason to not trust her. Plus, I figured, if I were married to a lady that beautiful, I could not be jealous. Nothing wrong with having a hot girl, guys, but be aware. Those hot girls know they have options, especially nowadays, with the temptation of dating apps, social media, all that. Even before that bullshit, they knew they could walk right out the door, and a hot woman, who's, I would say, an 8 or above, particularly a 9 or a 10, wherever she went, dudes are checking her out. And for a guy, that's a great compliment to him. He's feeling good. He's got that hot lady. As long as she isn't actually just for him for his resources, she actually respects him because this guy acts like a man. He's a leader, take charge, doesn't put up with her shit. All the right things I coach you guys on. But sadly, a guy would have to sleep with one eye open, and he has to be strong enough not to let her bullshit ensue. Fast forward many years, I was working 60 hours a week in an incredibly stressful job. Financially, we were in exceptionally good shape. I had plotted the savings and figured that we had enough money to last until we were in our 90s. I told her that my plans were to retire at 62. That's so I could enjoy life. After all, I've been working since I was 13. She didn't want me to retire. She wanted me to work longer. Now we're getting into it. This guy's busting his ass since 13 years old, being smart with his money, investing it, saving it, putting it in the right places so he can retire at 62 and enjoy the good life for the rest of his life until he passes in his 90s. She doesn't want to retire. Why? Because she probably wants that same income coming in, so she keep living that lifestyle. Also, she probably doesn't want him at home. And one has to question why these things. Now, a little more, she was a stay-at-home mom and never worked outside the home. The company that I worked for used me as a troubleshooting consultant. They would send me to take care of problem companies. I was particularly good at coming into a company and I had natural abilities to cut through the BS and get results. Most of the time they were inside of the U.S., but on a few occasions they were overseas. We had moved to a southeastern state when we bought our house, and she became good friends with the lady next door. Her and her husband were my age. She was a flirt and an alcoholic. Not long after moving in, marriage year 21, so the wife was in her mid-40s. No, the wife was in her early 40s at this point. Whenever my wife and her were together, she'd come home pissed at me. I ignored it until one morning as I was leaving for work. A letter was laying in front of the door basically saying that she was tired of doing things for me. She was no longer taking care of me and our son, who was 16 years old at the time. Wait a second here. She's tired of taking care of you. Have you not been the one providing the income for 2 decades? She doesn't have to worry about money. You're the one working 60 plus hours a week, traveling abroad and all that. You're busting your ass. The lifestyle that she enjoys because of you, and she's tired of taking care of you. What the hell else is she going to do? Sit on her ass, watch television all day, and drink with her flirtatious alcoholic neighbor? You gotta be fucking kidding me. If she's not doing any work and your son's 16, clean the house, cook some food, go grocery shopping, do some laundry. It's not going to take up that much time, much of her week. Okay? And okay, fine. You can have the 16-year-old do some chores because all kids should do chores. You gotta be shitting me. Now watch how he caves. He said here, I agree to do more around the house. Smack. Bullshit. She can do it. I was already taking care of all the outdoor maintenance. As far as the neighbor, I always prided myself on always being faithful. Truth is, I worked so much I didn't have time or energy to have an affair. One day the neighbor's husband was on a business trip and my wife was visiting her parents in our native state. When my wife asked me to check on the neighbor's wife, she supposedly wasn't feeling good. I went over and she said she had hurt her shoulder and asked if I would massage it. That's trouble. I did it for a few minutes. Smack. I smell setup. Then she took off her top and was braless. It scared me too close to home. Wife's friends, was I being set up? I left. After the incident, I never went around her unless the wife was with me. Nothing else was ever said. I think that was a complete and total setup, which obviously failed because you didn't sleep with her. What I tell you about who your girl hangs out with, guys, what I tell you about laying down the law, what I tell you about being the leader in the relationship, you can see all these things this guy stopped doing, who he was in the beginning. He stopped being the same guy he was when he met his beautiful, amazing, head-turning woman there. Does her actions sound like someone that respects her guy? Does her actions sound like someone that loves her guy? No. Now, sure, over time, being married for a long time, you eventually, as these things go, you know everything about the person, things can get a little dull and boring, but still, this is terrible. It only gets worse. After the children were gone, my wife would travel with me. But along about marriage year number 34, she stopped traveling. She wanted to stay home. I did too, but I didn't get that luxury. So, okay, at marriage year 34, she would be about 54 years old and he'd be about 59 years old, give or take, I think. Through the years, she'd become a massive manipulator and a control freak. Through the years, I guarantee you that's who she was at 20 years old. She controlled what I ate, what I wore, what I was allowed to do. When I pushed back, the next month was unbearable. But after being married for so many years, the thought of divorce was worse. Smack. If the younger you could see what you were doing, letting your wife tell you what to eat, where you go, what you wear and all that, the younger you would travel to the future and smack you just like I am. Guys, you don't let your woman tell you what to do. If your girl's a vegetarian or decides one day she's vegetarian, okay, knock yourself out. Doesn't mean I'm going to become a vegetarian, and you got a problem with that? Fine, we break up. You always have to have the attitude, guys, that you can walk away, no matter what. Even if you take a fucking hit financially because of the divorce. Because the second she knows you're not going anywhere, and she can do whatever BS she wants to make your life miserable, as if the respect wasn't already declining, it's down the toilet. Women will never love a guy they don't respect. And when they don't respect them, they'll pull BS. It's unfortunate, but it is what it is. Human nature is what it is. I started getting older, gained some weight, but was still highly active. She still looked fantastic. I was traveling and she was staying at home when she met a doctor. I thought at first that he was using her, but came later to realize she was controlling him. She was very health oriented, and he was a medical doctor and I was into alternative treatment. She was deeply knowledgeable on alternative medicine. Later I was to find out that they talked daily. She was at his clinic daily. They had each other's phone numbers. When I questioned this, it was my fault. She was just helping him with alternative medicine. Yeah, sure. And of course, this guy called her on it, and she of course twisted it around, manipulated it. It's your fault. How could you not trust me? That type of shit. Shouldn't have been allowing this, man, but I can understand how decades of just being worn down, because these things don't usually happen overnight. It's the wearing down can go over a long time. It's the old thing about I'm sure you guys heard about the whole thing about the frog in the boiling pot of water. You guys know what I'm talking about here, where there's a boiling pot of water, a frog jumps in, the frog's gonna jump out. But you put that frog in the water and it slowly turn up the heat, eventually the frog will boil to death and die. It's kind of like this in these stories where the bullshit starts and it's very little at first, and the guys become a little pee-whipped, then more pee-whipped, and more pee-whipped over time. Gotta be careful. And then the guy one day wakes up and realizes, like, what the hell happened? Who am I? He's looking in the mirror saying, well, what the hell? Look at me, what I'm wearing, what I'm doing, right? Gotta be careful. He says here she wanted me to be thin, so she had the medical doctor give me a prescription weight loss medication. When that didn't do it, she had him increase the dosage, beyond recommendation. I was not seeing him, so I knew she was manipulating him. By the way, my doctor was in the same clinic. I reported this to him, and about 6 months later, her doctor departed on his practice. I was making it home every other weekend. She was taking massive vitamins and expecting me to do the same. She would put daily approximately 25 pills in baggies. If I came home with them, I caught hell. She was trying to get you to take 25 pills a day, vitamins. You got to be shitting me. I think she's trying to off you, man. I started having health problems that I believe was due to some of the vitamins I was taking and the prescription the doctor was giving me. My kids started worrying about me, and on their encouragement, I started dumping them. Yeah, you think? Jesus. She's trying to off you, man. But of course, your kids don't want to think that about their mom. Our marriage had really started to deteriorate. After about year 38 of our marriage, I had retired but agreed to take on one more job for 6 months to stay. I thought that if I could get back home, we could work things out. In the meantime, to try and get away from the doctor, she was a good artist. So I got her back into art. That later became the total downfall. While taking art classes, she met a lawyer. That told her that due to the state we lived in, she was a princess if she divorced me. She will get the house, half the retirement, and alimony, and that would keep me from working to the day I died, so that she could live in the same style that she was used to. It finally hit me that I was no longer anything to her other than a cash cow. It took me 38 years to realize that, and I was good at going into companies and cutting through the BS, but I couldn't see it in my own home. Bro, I know I've been tough on you about your past, and you can't change your past, and I know you're well aware of all these things looking back, but this happens to a lot of guys. They can take care of shit in the real world, but in their own homes, in their relationships, because emotions and all that, it's very hard for them to see what's going on because they turn the blind eye, they have the rose-colored goggles, that type of thing. It was 5 months into the last 6 months stay when I got a call. She had changed the locks and we were getting a divorce, and I was no longer welcome home. And the final statement, and this is what she said, and I quote here, "I am taking you for everything." This guy's probably like, what? After all these years that I did everything? You all heard it, guys. She never worked a day ever. He took care of everything. Was good, supportive, all that. Now she's suddenly taking you for everything? I had one saving grace. I had a farm in my native state that I bought in my youth. She had to wait 1 year to file for a divorce. I could travel back to my farm, establish residency in 60 days. She also was from there. So I filed, and when she came back to visit her parents, I had her served. That brought the divorce back here to this state, which is 50-50, no alimony state. Good for you, man. Good calculating, good. I can't think of the word right now, but you know what I mean here. Because I guess if it happened in the other state, well, you really been taken to the cleaners. In the end, after 2 years of negotiation, she got 58% of the pot. But I figured I had enough to live off of. I'm getting old. I just wanted to live in peace. I now live comfortably on my farm by myself. I will not get married again, and I really don't even want to date. Dude, nobody can blame you at all. And even though she got 58%, and quite frankly, she should get 8% in my opinion, not even that, at least she didn't get more. So good for you for outmaneuvering her, getting her to come to your state and then serving her there, so you got a much better deal. And you'll be fine, but it just must chap your ass, all those decades you put in, right? Doing what you thought you should have done. Because that's, of course, what they tell the guys they're supposed to do. And look at the thanks he got. But she didn't get everything. I still have great kids and grandkids who I see a lot. So I did get something out of it. Yeah, dude. You got your great kids and great grandkids, and now you got a point in your life that you can see them as much as you want. And I'm sure those kids and grandkids, especially your children, although in a tight spot because she is their mother, I'm sure they see her for who she is. He says, now the lesson learned. I still have one of my sports cars I've had when I was 17, so don't be too hard on a young man in his car. I should have dated her much longer, but the little guy was in charge. I should have never let her stay at home all those years. I should remain being the bad boy and watch who they were friends with. I had never thought that she'd been unfaithful to me, but during the divorce, my lawyer asked me to write down anything that came to my mind that seemed out of place. This was not to go after her, but to show myself to not be too nice. After listing about 30 items, it really hit me like, wow, I was so naive. Thank you, SSM. Well, bro, that is a great story, and I'm sorry that shit happened to you, but your story is like so many others. Because typically the stories I do on here are usually guys, 20s, 30s, 40s, but I've never really gone past even the 50s. But it goes to show you guys, 40 years of marriage. Look what he did, right? So for you guys out there that think you want to get married, you must remember, as I say, really think things through before you do this. 40 years, right here. This is an old school guy here showing what happened. And believe me, also I might add, 40 years ago, so we're talking 1972, that he married around there, early 70s. They're the same back then. This is before social media and dating apps and all that. This is really right around, it sounds like, when they got together. The S-word revolution was taking place and all that. You know, maybe she was some beautiful hot hippie. I don't know. But anyhow, lots of lessons here. Don't ever change who you are. You meet some hot girl and you're a relationship guy, if you're more of a bad boy type, or just maybe you're just a good guy, but you have respect for yourself, you have your own life, your own hobbies, your interests, your own opinions, your whatever it is, don't change that for her. Don't put her on the pedestal. Don't let her lead the relationship. Otherwise, you can expect shit like this. And of course, don't marry after 3 goddamn months. You spend years getting to know her on multiple fronts, okay? And last but not least, the car. This guy kept mentioning me in the car. I got no problem with a young guy has a car. My issue is, and I brought this up before in the past, a young guy shouldn't have spent a shitload of money on a car, okay? You can have a car maybe you fixed up or something, but in my opinion, a young guy should be putting away as much money as he can early on and investing it and watch that money grow. It will pay off big time over the decades because you all know it will grow. But a lot of young guys will piss away all his money on bullshit, including an expensive car. You can get the expensive thing down the road when you've had a little success. So I think you misunderstood me here. I got no problem with a car, but just you don't get ridiculous in terms of the money spent on a depreciating asset. We can all have fun. There's nothing wrong with that. But hey, I just hadn't mentioned that there because the guy kept bringing it up a few times. So anyway, bro, great story. I wish you the best. You're 69 years old. You got plenty of life to live still. Have a great time with your kids, the grandkids. You know, I'm going to highly recommend that if you're not doing it already, get exercise regularly. Motion is lotion, as they say. Do walks, go on bike rides, go to the gym, do some resistance exercise. Just be very, very careful. If you've never worked out before, check with a doctor, get a physical, make sure everything's cool, you know. Eat healthy, eat well, so you can be there for your kids and grandkids, so you can teach your kids, particularly if you have boys and grandsons, not to make the mistakes you did one day. And you never know what things may come on down the road. You never know what new hobbies you may discover that you enjoy. You got plenty of life to live, and I wish you the best. And I appreciate your story. Your story will help somebody. You never know. You could be helping some guy who lives over on the other side of the world, and by you sharing your story, will make him think twice about doing the type of mistakes that you did. Or maybe a guy's watching this now, and he's already making these mistakes, and he realizes, shit, I better change my ways, otherwise I can have the same fate as the dude who's 69 years old on SSM's channel. So I appreciate you doing that. All right, guys, that is it for today. Be sure to comment down below. Let me know what you think about this. And guys, if you've got a great story you'd like to share just like this dude, by all means, email it to me, strongsuccessfulmale@gmail.com. Just be sure to make it easy for me to read, write out really well, and I'll get to it when I can. And be sure to like the video, share with your friends, and subscribe. And I'll catch you next time.